So how do you run a sub 3:15 marathon? This is a question I often get asked and recently was asked in terms of how to properly train to get to a point where you can really sustain that 726 mile pace for 26.2 miles or 437 per kilometer for 42.2 kilometers. Really, when it comes to the marathon distance, a longer buildup is always going to be better than a shorter buildup, because types of workouts I would recommend for somebody that's trying to break the 3 hour and 15-minute marathon barrier is doing six. This is the same types of workouts I was doing over the years that helped me run 219 to go from 243 to 219. I was doing between 5 and 6 1-mile repetitions, 3 2-mile repetitions on the track, or 3 3,200-meter reps, or 5 to 6 1,600-meter reps under 525. But in your case, for the athlete that's trying to break 3 hours and 15 minutes, I would first spend about 2 to 3 weeks running easy, relaxed mileage, and then build into a minimum of a 16 to 24 week block of training. And early on, your mile repeats, or doing mile repeats, might mean doing each rep around 630 to 635, and then eventually moving down to around 610 to 615 per rep. If you're doing repeat 2 miles, I would focus on getting to a point where you can do those 3 3,200-meter repetitions at around 650 to 7-minute mile pace on the track. Again, you want to make sure that you get that 726 mile pace or 437 kilometer pace to feel more manageable for you in the race. Definitely, without a doubt, if you're trying to break 3:15 for the marathon, you want to run a negative split. Do not get too aggressive in the first half of your race. This is where most runners really get it wrong. They have the capability to break 3 hours and 15 minutes, but they're getting too hyped up and they're running someone else's race. You need to run your race, be confident in your own training, and make sure that you are staying as relaxed as you can prior to the start of the race and especially while you're in the race. Okay, the time to be stressed out is not the morning of the race or the day of the race. Okay, it's a celebration for all of your hard work and training. What most runners need to really work on doing is focusing on if you're going to make some mistakes, make the mistakes in training. If you run your reps too fast, if you're trying to run repeat miles, in this case, trying to get to a point where you can run repeat miles at like 610 to 615 per rep, and again, this is when you're like midway into a 16-week, or around 8 weeks into a 16-week block of training, or maybe 12 weeks into a 24-week block of training. You want to be doing mile reps that fast, not at the very beginning. Okay, that might, doing mile repeats at just under threshold pace, which might mean 650 to 655 per rep, may be the better option. Okay, if you're trying to run sub 3:15 for the marathon, starting off doing repeat 800s on the track at threshold pace, which might mean like between 325 to 329 per rep, and then working your way down once you've adapted to the hard anaerobic workouts and you're more like 50% into a 16-week to 24-week block of training. If you're about 50% in, then you want to start working on running those repeat 800s around 310 to 315. Okay, there's a process when it comes to breaking the 3:15 marathon barrier. Okay, without a doubt, pacing is critical. Your nutrition in the race, your hydrating practices, if you neglect this, if you don't practice this in training, it's going to be very hard to run a 3:14:59 for the marathon distance. Okay, it's not just about being in great physical shape. You have to pay attention to what the best runners are doing. The best runners know how critical and important and vital hydration and taking in calories in this race is, especially in the marathon race. Make sure you are taking in gels. Okay, that's anywhere from 100 to 150 calories immediately going into your bloodstream as you're racing. So it's very, very important that you do not pass those aid stations up, and you also are ingesting some gels. So have one gel on each side of your shorts. Make sure that you also take the gel that they usually have around mile 17 or 18 in the marathon race. And there's a reason they have that, because at any given time, we only have around 1,700 to 1,800 calories of glycogen built up in our bloodstream, in our bodies. we have an enormous amount of fat storage, but we have a very limited amount of glycogen or carbohydrate storage. So the key is to running a faster marathon is you want to make sure you're doing the types of workouts that is going to teach the body to utilize what it has much more of, which is fat storage, and to be able to conserve what it has much less of, which is carbohydrate or glycogen. So you can call upon that in the last 10 kilometers of your race. Okay, I had to learn the hard way myself in the marathon distance. It took me many years. I started running in 1992, started running marathons in 2002, and debuted with a 2:43.36. Took me another 5 years to December 2007 to run 2:19.35. In that 5-year period, the biggest mistakes I was making was, one, running long, slow distance runs every single weekend. Long runs should not be slow and easy every single weekend, especially if you're trying to run a sub 3:15. You need to start changing up your strategy if you really want to go from, say, a 4-hour marathon to a 3:14.59. Drastic changes need to be made, and that means you need to start spending some time running at VO2 max effort, running at your threshold effort, sprinkling in those types of intensities during your long run, and not just getting sucked into this long, slow running mindset. The Kenyans and the other best runners in the world, the Norwegians, the Japanese, the Chinese, a lot of these runners around the world, Ethiopians, top Americans, top Canadians, they make it look easy for a reason, because they're running a higher percentage of their weekly volume at or below their lactate threshold. Okay, that's anywhere from 85 to around 92% of max heart rate. Okay, and the only reason why they make it look easier is because they're just simply training at a higher intensity, and also they do have a certain amount of genetic capability. And to run a sub 3:15 marathon, you definitely have to have some form of physical ability to be able to sustain 7:26 mile pace for 26.2 miles or 4:37 kilometer pace for 42.2 kilometers. But without a doubt, the major things that I would recommend so that you don't screw up this race is going out too fast. Focus on running a negative split, staying as relaxed as you can in the race. Focus on training, doing the workouts that are going to help you get closer to running 3:14.59, okay? That is repeat 400s. It might be when you're first starting off, running around 135 to 137 per rep, doing anywhere from 10 to 20 400 meters on the track. More rest in the beginning when you're not very fit. The reps are going to be slower. As you get much fitter, you want to lessen the rest in between each one of those reps, and working your way down to where you're doing those repetitions around 123 to 125, a minute and 23 to a minute and 25 seconds per rep. So the key is working to improve the body's lactate tolerance so that you can sustain sub 3:15 marathon pace. And again, even if you're extremely fit, it's going to be very, very hard for you to run a sub 3:15 if you get too hyped up and you're trying to run someone else's race in the early miles of the race or the early kilometers of the race. Also, you want to focus on making sure that you get on a flat course. Don't pick a hilly course. Okay, no course is going to be fast unless the athlete is in phenomenal anaerobic and aerobic shape. You have to make sure that you're also paying attention to your recovery during the week. You're not running too fast on easy days. That's why I preach this all the time, to make sure that you are jogging on those recovery days. Okay, they're easy for a reason. Another big problem is athletes that have all the capability in the world to break a 3:15 marathon is they're still running too fast on those easy days. Take off the watch. Make sure that you're jogging on those easy days. Disregard pace. Focus on running extremely hard when you're doing the repetitions on the track, when you're doing your tempo runs, when you're doing those very paced long runs every other weekend. You should always follow a very paced long run with an easy, relaxed long run, so that again you're adapting to the hard training you're doing, and that you can eventually get to that 3:14.59 time you're aiming for. I hope this video is helpful for the athletes out there that are asking this question of how do you run a sub 3:15 marathon. I know there's a lot of other ins and outs when it comes to running a fast marathon. This is just an overview. If there's something I missed, or if you have another question, feel free to leave me a comment below. I'll definitely reach back out to you and respond. And I wish you all the best in breaking the 3:15 marathon. I know you can do it if you touch on and you really aim on some of these tactics and strategies that I talked about in this video. So I wish you all the best. Definitely go to RunDreamAchieve.com if you're looking for a training plan, if you're looking for a running course, or if you want to work one-on-one with me on a monthly basis as your coach. So I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.